Hi, I'm Marie. I'm an alcoholic. I am currently in New Hampshire, but I'm from other places. I grew up in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, and then I spent 10 years in DC. And I love to say I'm from DC, and that's my ego. I got a pretty late start to drinking because growing up, my whole goal was to be better than my mother. My mother got pregnant with me when she was very young, and I just held a lot of judgment for her and was very naive, learning later than I should have that she was drunk when she was pregnant with me. I just kind of was like, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to be better than my mom. I'm going to go to college, do XYZ, whatever it was. I just wanted to be better than her. I never drank until I was 19. I was in college. I had a lot of mental health issues that also were not really addressed because my mom didn't really agree with medication. Like I said, she was very young when I was born. And so she actually had a couple of different men in and out of my life when I was pretty young. And I saw some of them were drinking. And one of them I learned was smoking pot. And I thought that was the worst thing in the world. I was super naive. I had no idea people actually did stuff like this. So I went to college. My freshman year roommate drank and smoked pot, and I was scandalized. No idea this was a real thing. And then by the summer after my freshman year, I started realizing oh, these people are having fun. I'm just anxious all the time. These people are having fun. I should try it. And so I did. I had my first drink at a party. And I was like, okay, that was cool, but this is illegal. And so I'm not going to drink again until I'm 21. And that didn't happen because I am an alcoholic. Once I put a drink in my body, I cannot stop. I have no control over the next drink. I have no control over alcohol whatsoever. And so very quickly, I got to a point where I was just drinking constantly. The first time that I drank more than I meant to, I was sitting at a table playing a video game on my laptop, and I had one drink, and that was all I was going to have. But I am also obsessive and addicted to video games, and anything that I can get addicted to, I will be. And so I didn't notice that people kept refilling it for me. Some great friends, right? So that's the first time I got trashed, the first time that I drank more than I meant to. And then almost every time after that, I drank more than I meant to, more than I intended to. But I didn't think it was a problem because I was 19, I was in college, I was not a good student, but I thought everything was fine. Did not have a very good relationship with my family. My second stepfather was just not a good person. And so when I went to college, I stopped going home as much as possible. I did not see them, which I felt really bad about because I had a 2-year-old sister when I went off to college. And I still feel bad that I was not really in her life when she was younger. And now I'm in New Hampshire, so I still don't really get to be in her life. Another time that I realized there was an issue was I took my sister when she was 6 to see Frozen. And it was this place called the Alamo where it's also dinner and drinks while you're watching the movie. And so I got absolutely trashed. And I'm sitting in my mom's SUV in the parking lot with my sister in the car seat still, or whatever. Maybe she was younger. And I'm just trying my best to sober up. And eventually I'm like, this is good enough. And I drive her home. To this day, that is one of my biggest regrets, that I drove my baby sister home while I was drunk. And I've done a bunch of other not great stuff, but that's something that I really eventually I will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, but I still regret that. I caused a lot of harm to a lot of people in college, after college. When I was 24, I started dating a woman for the first time because I had been hiding from myself and my family that I was not straight. But that's when my mom divorced that stepdad, and he was the one who was terrible and bigoted and who I didn't feel comfortable being around. So I started dating this woman in 2014, and I'm still drinking a lot, and she's smoking a lot of pot. And so it's not a healthy relationship at all in the slightest. And things started to go bad. We broke up, but we're still living together. I'm 26 at this point. And one night I had started talking to other people on Tinder because I was if she's going to cheat on me and then working up, but still I'm going to do stuff too. I'm not going to just sit by and have this stuff happen to me. And so I found this woman on Tinder who was sober and queer. You don't have to be the former, but you have to be the latter, something like that. And so I messaged her. I was like, oh, how long have you been sober? And she said 3 years or something. How about you? And I was like, oh, no, that's not for me. I'm fine. So we met up. She told me her story and I could relate to more of it than I wanted to. And then she goes, what's your plan for the rest of the day? And I'm like, oh, well, I have like another Tinder date tonight and we're going to go out and we're going to go to Cobalt, which is a club in DC. And I said, I'm going to have 2 drinks. I woke up in the hospital. I woke up in GW Hospital. I have no idea how many drinks I had. Called that woman who had done that 12-step call for me, and I was ready to start going to meetings. I was terrified. I cried the whole time. The first one, I didn't start crying until people were like saying their names and that they were an alcoholic, and I turned to her, I was like, I don't want to say my name. I don't want to say my name. That's what I didn't want to do. But everybody, of course, was really welcoming. It was a young people's meeting. They gave me like a big book and like a list of meetings and everything. And I immediately started going to meetings like every day. I moved into a sober house. I lived there for 8 months and then I moved out with like a roommate who was sober. Eventually ended up living with my mom again, which was not healthy. But I was still sober. I was still going to meetings every day. And I was also still saying, this book is stupid and God is stupid and all of this is terrible. But I'm going to go to meetings. I'm going to socialize. I love people. I love being the center of attention also. So I continued to do that. I started dating someone in sobriety who was also sober, but like she was doing the steps and I wasn't. She was reading the book and I wasn't. After I was 4 years sober, we moved up to New Hampshire. It was the beginning of COVID because my girlfriend got a job up here. It was a 2-year position and we were going to be in New Hampshire for 2 years and then move wherever else. I didn't have a job lined up like she did. So I didn't know what to do. And I thought back to I was in IOP and somebody was like, Marie, you should do this. And I'm like, I can't keep myself together. How am I supposed to help someone else? But that rang in my ear when I moved up here. So I started working at a rehab. I worked 3rd shift and I was miserable. And I did it for a year and I was overwhelmed with how many people were like not wearing masks and everything because the culture up here is a bit different to DC. It was a shock. I have moved past that and I live my life. After about a year, 3rd shift at that rehab, constantly being told, we're going to move you to 1st shift, etc. Still not doing any work on myself. Still not like I stopped going to meetings, etc. I applied for a different job somewhere else. And my girlfriend's grandfather was dying and she went back home to check on that. While she was down there, it kind of became clear like this was not a healthy relationship. Because in all that, in the like 3 or 4 years that we were together, I did no work on myself. And so I was just continuing to cause harm without the alcohol, continuing to cause a lot of harm. And so we broke up. So I'm once again in the situation of like having broken up with somebody, but still living with them. But this time I'm in New Hampshire and I don't know anyone at all, aside from the people I work with who I don't really like. And so she gets back up here. I immediately start going to meetings again. I start going to in-person meetings in New Hampshire. I'm terrified. Everything is freaking me out, but I throw myself into it. And I immediately am like, I need a sponsor. I need to do the work. Clearly this isn't working. I want to die. So I got a sponsor who said, call me every day. I knew what you're supposed to do. I'd been to meetings for 5 years, just didn't do the work. And so I called her every day and like, she was telling me to pray and this and that and the other. I was like, I don't know about this, but I called her and complained. And eventually she stopped responding or answering. So my sponsor ghosted me. So I found another sponsor and we actually started reading and then she also ghosted me. And this is maybe over like 2 months and I'm starting to like make friends up here. I've started a different job. Right. I started a different job while my girlfriend was down in Maryland, actually. I could have easily gone back home because that relationship was falling apart. But after the first week at this job, I knew that I wanted to stay here because I like what I do now. I still work at a rehab, but I love the culture. I love helping people. I eventually found a really good group of people up here who are doing the work, doing the step work. I found a sponsor who got me to actually do the work. And so she says, I want you to get on your knees and pray every morning. And I'm like, that's not going to work. So I'll do it to show you that that's not going to help. And like jokes on me because it helped. I still had that like feeling of like, I don't want to be this sober and like this sober in quotation marks and like want to die all the time. And so I actually started doing the work in this book, this like book that's almost 100 years old. It's like amazing that it actually works. Who knew? I have finally finished a thorough 4th step. I have read to my sponsor. I'm doing Drop the Rock. And I am going back home next week and I'm going to try and do some amends. And what I know is that I have to be open to the idea of nobody really wanting to hear from me because of all the harm I've caused. That's kind of what I'm preparing myself for this week is getting down there and people will just fuck you. I don't want to see you. Goodbye. I am a lot more selfless now. And I have realized through my job and through the people I've met up here that I love helping people and being of service to others. And I still have a big ego and I still love being the center of attention, but I don't have to be. I like it, but I don't have to be. I'm not constantly trying to get people to pay attention to me like I was when I first started coming to things in New Hampshire about a year ago. And so I got my 6-year medallion last Thursday. Something that they do up here that they didn't do back home is people will like present your medallion to you and like talk a little bit about the relationship. And so literally the first like close friend I had up here, the person who helped me when my car flipped over, helped me move into a sober house up here because I'm back in sober living. At 5 years, I moved back into sober living because I did not have a safe place to live. And so he presented my chip to me and I cried and like, yeah, I haven't had a drink in 6 years, but this last year has been honestly the bulk of my recovery. And so I definitely don't recommend waiting 5 years to jump into the work. It's not worth it. Like I'm amazed that I didn't die or pick up a drink. Grace of God, right? Yeah, I'm really grateful for all the people that I've met and that I've been able to start actually doing the work. And I really hope that something that I've said has stuck out to someone. Thank you.